right, this is Scotty Sanders. I'm going to try that again. I had a little technical difficulty for some reason. Every once in a while, my iPad, it kind of flips in the wrong direction. Rarely does that happen, but it did happen tonight. I apologize if you jumped on early. And by the way, I've got this big smile on my face, and let me tell you why. I've been really getting into the whole police lip sync challenge, and I was watching Flower Mound PD. If you have not checked that out, you have to do it. It's the best to me. Now, I have to admit to you, full disclosure, I am biased. I live in Flower Mound, and not only do they have the best police department in the country, it's also one of the safest, if not the safest city in the country. But check out the Flower Mound PD lip sync. Now, another additional full disclosure, my son-in-law, Justin Labello, big shout out to Justin, is on that video. He's in the three guys that you'll see almost at the very beginning when they're kind of walking down the hallway. So he's the one with no moves at all. So the guy that has no moves, that would be my son-in-law, but an overall really good guy. So I'm curious, have you been checking out the lip sync challenge of the police departments? And I'd be curious, which one is your favorite one? Let's just see what you found to be very, very funny, informative, or whatever to you. And by the way, I just checked it when I was watching it, 6.8 million views for the Flower Mound PD for the lip sync challenge. Is that not just incredible? So I've been strategizing with my daughter. You know, I'll do a Facebook Live, and I'm just pouring in deep, transformative content, and you know, I might get 1,000, 2,000, sometimes 3,000 views, and it's like, wow, I guess I've got to change up my routine. So I might have to do some lip syncing. If you'd like to see me do that, let me know which song you'd like me to do, and I might do that as a change of pace down the road. So I wanted to add a little levity to my talk tonight, because I'm going to be talking about, by the way, if you don't know me, this is Scotty Sanders. I'm an international leadership consultant, and what I get to do and what I love to do is to encourage and to empower others to live, lead, and finish well. That's what I love to get to do. So this is one of the ways that I get to do that. It's my way of helping you to lead yourself well, because when you lead yourself well, it gives you an opportunity to lead others well. So my talk tonight is called Friendly Fire. In fact, a number of years ago, and I think I've passed that time, I had a 7-year, I had to wait before I could really speak on this subject or I could write another article. I did an article in an executive magazine called Friendly Fire, and kind of what damage is done when friendly fire happens. And friendly fire is this. Friendly fire is when an individual is upset with another team member in an organization, and rather than going to that team member, maybe they're upset because they don't like their performance, they don't like a decision they made, or maybe that person was offended or hurt, or something happened that strained that relationship, or that person started questioning, why is this staff member or team member doing this? But rather than going directly to the team member you have the issue with or concern with, you go around them and you talk to other team members, or worse than that, you go to their supervisor and you don't go directly to them. That is a common practice I find in many, many organizations. And in fact, I was having a conversation today in an interview with an executive I'm looking at bringing on for another organization I work with, and we talked about that very subject and how this person would handle situations where confrontation is not being handled the right way. So let me just tell you this, I'm passionate about stopping this from happening, because I believe it is so damaging, and it causes disunity. It can be very divisive and very painful. And so basically, friendly fire is when someone on your team goes around your back, and I call it triangulation, goes around your back and starts talking bad about you or critical of you to other people. When that happens, that's a real problem. Okay, so I may be having some difficulty. I see several of you are on, but I just got a text from someone on our team that said they're not able to view it. So I'm sorry. We'll make sure that we send this out there that you can watch the replay if you're able to miss it live. If you have joined me, make sure that you let me know that you're on. So someone just said they were having trouble at first, now they're getting it. The reason you may have been having trouble at first is because I was having a little technical difficulties. Sometimes with my iPad, it turns things sideways, so I decided to stop and start again. So again, friendly fire is when someone on the team goes around another staff member's back and then they start talking about them, being critical, being negative. And the reason I call it friendly fire is because you don't expect someone that's on your team to hurt you. And that's why I call it friendly fire. So it's a very unhealthy behavior, and it's very prevalent in organizations, but it can be very, very damaging. So what should happen? So I'm going to break this down. First, what should happen rather than going around saying what should happen? Okay, if that doesn't happen, how should you handle this? So let me talk to you and walk you through the different steps. So I'm going to call the first step is what should happen. And I want you to keep this in mind. So I want you to think for a second and just pretend you're the person that has an issue with someone else, okay? And listen, I've dealt with no less than 50 situations. No, I could think of just off the top of my head, I could go through real quick 50 that I could come up with. I might have dealt with 100, but I know at least 50 of these situations I've dealt with where I had to intervene or jump in and deal with someone that had an issue with a team member, but they didn't go directly with them. So I want to talk to you what should happen. But I want you to keep this in mind. Let's say you're the person that you feel like you've been offended, or you have a concern, or you have an issue or a question about something and what you should do. But when you go to that staff member, which is what you should do, okay, you need to go to that person, go to them, be gentle, be humble, but also be candid. A lot of times I've seen people where they finally get up enough courage to do it. When they go with them, they shrink back from what they need to do, and they didn't deal with the issue. So you got to make sure the issue is being dealt with, all right? So what should happen in that situation? Number one, you go directly to that team member, all right? Go directly to that team member. You don't go to others, you go directly to them. And you communicate clearly what the issue is, all right? Don't sugarcoat it, but make sure they understand clearly what your concern, what the issue. If they did something to hurt you, let them know, all right? Listen, you may not have meant this, but when you said this, that really hurt me, all right? Express it, okay? Don't get too emotional about it, but be clear in your communication. And go in it seeking understanding more than being accusatory, all right? So just, if you come to me, it would be, hey, Scotty, help me to understand when you said this, what did you mean by that? Versus when you said that, you realize, and you start accusing me because you don't know what my motives may be, all right? So again, you go directly to that person, you communicate clearly to them, and you seek understanding, and don't be accusatory in that. And the fourth thing you want to do there, the goal in that, the goal isn't to be right, okay? That's not the goal. The goal is to make it right, not for you to be right. If it's about you being right, you've already lost in that game, because that shouldn't be the end game. The goal should be restoring the relationship. It should be forgiveness, right? And it should be healing, that doesn't linger on. Or, as stated earlier, better understanding. You may not get completely past it, but at least you have a better understanding of what happened. Okay, so that's kind of the first step you should take, is that you should, what should happen. That's the first step. You go directly to that person. All right, and here's some other things as far as that. Being on the team, be a team member, be a team player. Don't hurt your fellow team members. They're in the trenches with you. You don't want to hurt them. Be a team player. Never, never undermine a fellow team member. That's just a no-no. If I'm interviewing people and I find out they have a track record of that or a history of that, I will probably, if I know that, I will not hire that person if that's their heart, if they're undermining, because it's so divisive and so toxic in any organization. And listen, if there's no resolution between you two, so you go to that person, you're direct, you communicate directly to them, you're clear on the communication, what the issue is, you seek understanding, your heartbeat is resolution, forgiveness, but it's not resolved. At that point, if you can't get past it, then you're in a place where you can meet with that person's supervisor with that fellow staff person. Okay, make sure you get these steps right. You can meet with the supervisor once you've met with them, but you meet with them with the person. So the two of you at that point would go to the supervisor. Now pretend for a second that you're the person that's being confronted. And listen, none of us enjoy that. None of us like to go and confront, and none of us like to be confronted. But honestly, confrontation can be healthy if it's done the right way. Families need to be able to confront in a healthy way. People that work together in businesses, in school, whatever it may be, you need to be able to confront in a healthy way. So when someone comes to you and they're confronting you, so I want you to pretend for a second you're being confronted, and here's what I want you to do. Let me suggest this to you. First thing when they come to you, you ought to thank that person for coming to you. You may say, what? They're confronting me. They're mad at me or whatever. And you're saying, thank them for doing that? Absolutely. Because you want to thank them for doing it the right way. Because what most other people are doing, they're going behind your back to others and blaming you and being critical of you. Thank them to say, you know what, I really appreciate you coming to me. That means a lot. Thank you for doing that. All right? So that's the first thing you want to do. And then you want to make sure that you listen. Listen. Don't interrupt them. Listen. Third, don't get defensive. Okay? Our tendency is when they say something, you want to defend it quickly. Just listen. Don't get defensive. All right? So look at this as a way they're honoring you by coming to you directly versus going around you, triangulating to other people. And then number 4 is I want to encourage you to practice the 2% rule. And the 2% rule is this. Again, you want to thank them, you want to listen, don't get defensive. And I want you to listen to what they're saying and see what you can really own of that. Now, there's been times, and why I call it the 2% rule is this. Sometimes there have been cases where someone's come to me and confronted me, and they were so far off base. I mean, it's like, where did they get this? Where are they coming from? Okay? But what I realized, even when 98% of it was totally off, there was 2% there that I needed to learn. And I will focus on that 2%. Let me back up. 98% off, 2% on, the 2% rule, the 2% that I personally need to own. Then I need to work on that 2%. And the next thing you need to do for that 2% or the 98%, whatever that may be, you need to say, you know what, I'm sorry that it came across that way. I'm sorry that that offended you, or I'm sorry that didn't make sense to you. And you need to make it right, okay? Now again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with them 100%. And sometimes you might say, let me have some time to think about this and process this. So you don't have to own it just because you're listening and you're being respectful and you thank them. There's nothing wrong with that. But let me tell you what I found. There's usually always at least 2% of what they share that you can own. It could have just simply been your tone, right? Not what you said, but your tone. Or maybe there was something behind your message. Maybe they were off on the message, but your tone and your motivation behind the message could have been off. So I want you to really, that will help you grow when you deal with that. Now, let's pretend for a second. Here's another. So we got this is kind of the 3 actors in this play. The first actor is the person that has an offense. The second actor is the person that has offended someone or did something that the first person didn't like. The third actor in this is the supervisor. How do they fit in? Okay, very important. Listen to me. If you're a supervisor, you've got to get this right. Listen to me. You've got to get this right. You will not be an effective, you will not be a successful, you will not be a good supervisor unless you get this right. So if you're a supervisor, if you supervise any people at all, you better pay attention to this. This will make a difference. I have people that stay in contact with me after I've led them 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 30 years ago because they knew that I would follow these concepts as it related to being a supervisor. They may not always agreed with me, but they respected that they always knew how I handled these situations. Very important if you want to be an effective leader. So listen up to this. So the supervisor, first, and I'll give you an example. And I've had this happen many, many, many times to me. You know, more times I like to even mention, where someone may call me that maybe or stop by and they may have an issue with another staff member, another team member. They'll start in on the conversation saying, I just need to talk to you about something. I've got an issue with Bill or Sally or whatever. And I'll just say, well, listen, when you talk to Bill or Sally about this, what did they have to say? And many, many times, what they say to me, well, I've not talked to them. I stop them in their tracks. I'm not going to go any further. You mean you've not talked to Bill about this situation? No, I want to talk to you about it. Absolutely not. Until you talk to Bill about it, I'm not going to. So the first thing, you want to direct them to the team member. Now, here's a caveat. If it's something that they bring up to you, and you can say this, I mean, listen, if Bill has done something illegal or unethical, I want to know about it. But if it's something else, I want you to go directly to Bill and deal with this. All right. So that's first. You direct them to the team member. Second, let them know that you will be glad to discuss it with them further after they've talked to Bill, but you would talk to them and Bill together about the situation. You're not going to, even after they talk to Bill, you're not going to come back and talk to that person without Bill in the room. That's unfair to Bill. You're not being a good leader. You're not being a good supervisor when you do that. So that's the second thing. Third, support the team member. Emphasize to the person when they go to Bill, say, listen, I trust Bill. I believe Bill would want to hear whatever your issue is, and I think he'll listen to you. And I think his heart is right. So you want to reinforce that you value Bill as a team member, okay? So that's the three things as a supervisor. But let me say this to you as a supervisor. If you're a leader, a supervisor, a manager, a boss, whatever you want to call it, okay? Whatever that may be, if you oversee, you have direct reports, your team members want to know probably more than anything else that they can trust you to have their back, okay? They got to know that. If they have questions that you don't have their back, they're going to be skittish. They're going to be running scared, and they'll eventually leave you because no one wants to work for a boss that does not have their back. Very important that you do that. And here's another thing. All the years that I've had people come to me and want to complain about another staff member, it would have been so easy for me to just bring them into my office. Well, I'm so sorry, and I hate that happened. And listen, when you start doing that, all you're doing is trying to make that person happy, but you're undermining another staff member. I call that throwing a staff member under the bus, and I would refer to that as being part of the friendly fire, okay? No one wants friendly fire. No one wants to be hurt by someone that's a team member. They just do not want that. So listen, you may say, well, how do you ever solve the issue? You solve it in the right process. You have a plan that you do it, and you follow a sequence that honors that other staff member, and it mitigates, if not eliminates, triangulation or friendly fire in the organization. So your job is not to make everybody happy. It's not. I know some bosses, that's their main thing. I want to keep everybody happy. Listen, I have people unhappy with me all the time. If there's not some unhappy people with you, you're not making tough decisions. Okay? I don't go out of my way to make people unhappy, but I'm not going to make decisions predicated on someone else's happiness. Can't do that and be a leader. Just can't do it. All right? So get that if you're a boss now, if you're a leader, supervisor. So friendly fire is really the fuel for disunity in any organization. I found that to be the most divisive, the most volatile, toxic behavior that can happen in an organization is when a fellow staff member brings about friendly fire. They triangulate and go around a staff member and critical someone else without going directly to them. And if you are in a position of leadership, I want to urge you to stop that from happening in your organization. Make it zero tolerance. We will not tolerate that behavior. And let me say to you, let's just say you are a person that you've done that. And listen, have I done that before? I have. I regret that. I've confessed that. I said, man, I've messed up there, and I want to make that right. But if you've done that, number one, you may need to go back to some people you've done that to, and you need to apologize to them, and you need to make it part of your personal character that you're not going to do that in the future. That just, again, you can't do a lot about what's happened in the past. You can do a lot going in the future, and you learn from that experience, right? Okay, so I want to encourage you to do that. So I'd be curious, what would be your biggest takeaway or the best quote of the night? So I want you to post that. Just like we did last week, we brought it back by popular demand. If you'll post the biggest quote, best quote, or the biggest takeaway, we'll repost that and give you credit for that. Because I want to make sure that gives me a little bit of gauge what is resonating, what is speaking to you. So that would be something I would ask you to do. And then also want you to, find the share button right now. And then I want to encourage you, hit the share button, because when you do that, then other people that keep up with you and follow you, they'll be able to see the things that you're learning, and it's a way that you can help spread this message. If this has been helpful to you, I would encourage you to do that. So just hit the share button and do that. So I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'm going to keep leading well, and I want to encourage you to keep leading well. Until next time, take care.